Welcome to the Great Plague. Did you happen to know that ancient Greece was actually ruled by a peasant woman? Strange as it may seem, the source of all Western philosophy and religion was ruled by a peasant woman, allegedly. For almost 1,000 years, the oracles ruled Greece. The oracles, also known as sibyls, were peasant women usually selected from birth and raised by the priesthood and trained how to be oracles. And so the oracle would receive a question, and then she would go into like a frenzied state, and then she would start speaking out in Greek hexameter, right? Because the Sibyl is the voice of God, right? It's a male God speaking through her. So, of course, he's going to speak in a mathematical language, because mathematics are God to the ancient Greeks, such as Plato, Aristotle, whom were all Pythagoreans. So the Sibyl would give her prophecy, and it was understood that because of the detailed nature of the prophecy and because of the hexameter of the verse, which an uneducated peasant girl, neither of which she would know how to do, it was understood that it had to be the voice of God speaking through her, because she's relaying information that she could not possibly know, because she lives in a cloistered environment as the prophetess. The Delphic oracle exerted considerable influence throughout Hellenic culture. Distinctively, this woman was essentially the highest authority, both civilly and religiously, in male-dominated ancient Greece. What'd I say? She responded to the questions of citizens, foreigners, kings, and philosophers on issues of political impact, war, duty, crime, family, laws, even personal issues. The semi-Hellenic countries around the Greek world, such as Lydia, Caria, even Egypt, also respected her and came to Delphi as supplicants. The oracle's powers were highly sought after and never doubted. Any inconsistencies between prophecies and events were dismissed as failure to correctly interpret the responses, not the error of the oracle. Very often prophecies were worded ambiguously so as to cover all contingencies. So, listen to what they're telling you, okay? On one hand, they're telling you that these women go into a frenzied state to deliver these prophecies. On the other hand, they're telling you that they're the most powerful person in the world, because all the kings with all their armies have to obey the oracle. And then down here they're telling you that it's all a scam, that they're just using some basic psychology and wordplay to pull all this off. Okay? So, this is what they're telling you in 2025. They still don't want you to know what the oracle was. They still don't want you to know. Okay? They hint at it, but ask yourself this. If the oracle is just coming up with wordplay, why would the most powerful man in the world take that advice? Why would men who have armies and about to go fight a war take the advice of a woman who's just gonna spit out some like fortune cookie stuff? Because that's basically what they're telling you down here. That the prophecies were worded in a way so that it could be interpreted, you know. So do you really think The ancient Greeks were that stupid. These powerful men with their armies and all the most famous, powerful people came to the oracle. Do you really think they're so dumb that they can't notice some fortune cookie wordplay? Because that's what this article wants you to believe. You see? 3,000 years later, they're still lying to you. 3,000 years later, they still don't want you to know what the oracle really was. The truth about the oracle is just as secret now in 2025 as it ever was. The difference is now, you could say what the truth about it is, and they probably won't behead you. Back then, it's off with your head if you disrespect the oracle. The secrets of the aristocracy from Aristotle's time are still being kept. You still don't know what they knew. We still don't know what they knew then. They still don't want you to know what the oracle is. They're still giving you this ridiculous story that all the most powerful men in the world came to get a fortune cookie from a peasant girl. Right? They still want you to believe that the Sibyl was either A, some kind of real prophet who went into a psychic state, or B, a complete fraud who gave fortune cookies but still somehow held all the power. A peasant girl. You see how they leave out most of anything that could help you make sense of history, what's actually going on? Still to this day, you're not allowed to know what the oracles were. However, let me give you a couple of quotes from another book. When oracles ruled, the academy was the sacred grove where Plato and the others taught and bore reference to the tree, the oak, the axe. As in Rome, force was the prerogative of Zeus, and should one disobey the command of the oracle, death was the penalty. So, if you disobey the oracle, Zeus's oracle, right? She's Zeus's oracle. She's not just anyone's oracle. She's Zeus, the war master. If you defy Zeus's oracle, what do you think is going to happen? Well, I'm pretty sure that the peasant girl is not going to get up off her oracle chair and come hunt you down with a knife. That's not how it's going to work. That's not how it's going to work. Another quote. When Constantine accepted Christianity, the oracles suddenly stopped. 200 of the most prominent oracles of the classic world suddenly ceased to speak. To some, this was a miracle. To others, it was only the pagan priests seeing the handwriting on the wall and changing over to Christianity. But in England, all the Druid priests had to be corralled and isolated on the island of Angelus and killed before Christianity could replace Druidism. So you mean to tell me those young women that had so much power in ancient Greece, their power just suddenly vanished overnight? Look back to what it's telling you. It's saying they're powerful. The Delphic oracle exerted considerable influence. Distinctively, this woman was essentially the highest authority, civilly and religiously. the highest authority. And that part is true. That part of it is true. If you were a king, you had to come to the oracle to ask. If you were a lord, you had to come to the oracle and get her blessing. But who is this woman that's speaking in hexameter, giving orders to kings and noblemen? Why is she so powerful? Because she has fortune cookies? Or is it because? In fact, it even tells you here. It even tells you here. Croesus, king of Lydia, beginning 560 BC, tested the oracles of the world to discover which gave the most accurate prophecies. He sent out emissaries to 7 sites who were all to ask the oracles on the same day what the king was doing at that very moment. Croesus proclaimed the oracle at Delphi to be the most accurate, who correctly reported that the king was making a lamb and tortoise stew. Now, does that sound like what they just told you the oracle was? You will go, you will return, never in war will you perish. Right? Down here they're trying to tell you the oracle's talking out of both sides of her mouth. But then right up here, they're telling you that she came up with incredibly precise information about a very powerful person. So which one is true? Is she just giving you fortune cookies as they're claiming or hinting at down here? Or is she giving incredibly precise information to powerful people, and that's why they listen to her? Because she's giving them information that only someone who is in the know could even talk about, right? And so, where does the oracle get her information from? Where does she get her verse in hexameter? Does she write that herself? Of course not. Where is she getting intel about kings on the other side of the world from? From her frenzied state? Of course not. Okay? The reason Wikipedia still does not want you to know what the oracles were doing, what it was, is the same reason why religions don't expose each other. Because if you expose their scam, they're going to expose your scam. That's one thing scammers can agree on. We're not going to expose each other's scam. We may fight over customers and clout and all that, but you don't expose the scam. And that's what they're still doing. They're still keeping this scam secret. Just like they did. Remember I did that article about sacred prostitution? You remember that one? They're also trying to sell that one as some kind of female empowerment. I mean, a vicious institution designed to subjugate women to sexual slavery so they can be profited off of. And you're calling that sacred. This is the exact same thing. It's the same thing. It's a sacred scam. So there you have it. That's the truth about the peasant women who ruled the world for almost 1,000 years, whose presence suddenly vanished almost overnight once Constantine took on Christianity. That's how they became so powerful. Because it wasn't just them. They had an army behind them. And it's still like that. There's always an army behind the religion. It's the Great Plague.